Welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about installation and proxy usage of Burp Suite. The first thing that you're going to want to do is grab Burp Suite from portswigger.net. Portswigger.net is a security consulting company. They also make Burp Suite, this suite of tools. And they also provide some industry training, which is really good. The CTO, I believe, or the CEO of Burp Suite or Portswigger Web Security is the same author that writes the Web Application Hackers Handbook, which is considered to be the de facto training manual for web application hacking. And so it makes sense that Burp is one of the de facto tools for web application assessment because it has all these workflows built into it. So if you haven't seen that before, I would recommend going and getting that book from Amazon, the Web Application Hackers Handbook. So here we're on portswigger.net, and for this series I'll be showing off installation and usage of Burp Suite, the suite of tools, and explaining what Burp Suite is, as well as how you get up and running. If you have any additional questions, we're going to be covering some of this in the forums. If you've seen something I've missed or there's some type of errata, go ahead and post it there, and I'll make sure to talk about things like that. And also, Burp Suite has a tremendous forum and support area here, which will go through the same types of things that I do in the video, but they will do it in text. So if you go to support here, you can basically ask a ton of questions or view the support topics. So we're going to go ahead and download Burp Suite and talk about what Burp Suite does for us. So I've clicked on the download tabs here, or the downloads tab, and if I go to download now, we want the free edition. The differences between the free and pro edition are that the Pro Edition offers a couple tools that the Free Edition does not. These are things like the scanner and the content discovery and some other tools, as well as the Free Edition is throttled in some of the tools that are available to it. So the intruder and the scanner tool is not available, but mostly the intruder is throttled to so many requests per second. So you can do intruder work, but it will just be slower than what the professional edition offers. Burp Suite as a whole is not a very expensive tool compared to a lot of other application security tools. It's $299 for a pro license of Burp Suite, so most people should be able to get their hands on the professional edition, which includes a ton of extra tools that I would highly recommend you investing in. But if you're stuck with the free edition, that's no problem. You can still use it to a maximum potential, and we will go through some of that now. So you're going to go ahead and download the file that is Burp Suite, and that's going to come down as a Java jar file. And if I double click on this Java jar file, I have to have Java installed on this computer. I'm on a Windows box right now. It's going to bring up Burp Suite, which is great. It's super easy to start up. Here it's giving me a warning because I used it last and I didn't delete my temporary data. I'm just going to delete my temporary data from the last run I had. So you'll be presented with the Burp Suite window here, which we have. Now, one thing about this that you'll need to start to deal around is that Burp Suite uses a significant amount of memory when you start attacking a site. So you're going to be basically using Burp Suite to capture all of your traffic, and it's going to be your tool to assess this website. And so through that workflow, you're actually going to see a ton of requests and responses that Burp Suite is going to need to log and then change and then record what it did and things like this. So the default amount of memory that Burp Suite is given when you run it is actually not sufficient. So what we need to do is increase the amount of memory that Burp Suite can use. And so we can do that by running Burp Suite in a slightly different way than just double clicking on the icon. Let me close out all my Burp Suite windows here. So if you open up a command terminal, which you can just do by typing cmd down here in the run box, and I'm on a Windows box, you can do this even more easily on a Linux box or a Nix box. You can start Burp Suite with more memory by using the following command. Java, which opens up Java, -jar, which tells Java to open up a jar file, which is what this is, and then typing xmx2g. What this does is it tells Java you want to start Burp Suite with more memory, 2 gigs in this case. So then you give it the path to wherever your Burp Suite jar file is. So in my case, it's on the desktop, and there we go. So java-jar-xmx2g, and you can give it anywhere up to 4 gigabytes of memory, 4 gigs of memory, whatever you can afford to spare on your computer. But I would recommend the minimum being 2 gigs. So if I press enter now, you actually see that I got an error here. And the error basically says could not create the Java virtual machine. What happened here is I forgot to capitalize the first X in the XMX command, so make sure that you watch that capital right there. So now if I press enter, it will start Burp Suite with a higher than normal allocated memory. And Burp Suite is now running. So this is the general window for Burp Suite. Remember that Burp Suite is an application suite of tools, but the most important parts are usually the proxy itself that lets you dive into the application traffic that you might be seeing when you're testing a website. Now, for this video, we're just going to use Burp Suite and the proxy tab and the targets tab going over portswigger.net, which is a site where I downloaded Burp Suite from. So here you can see as soon as I started up Burp Suite, the proxy tab and the intercept sub tab have turned orange, meaning that there's activity. My browser is currently trying to use Burp Suite to go out to the internet. But we're going to start from the beginning, and we're going to tell you how to set up your browser to talk to Burp Suite first. So in your browser, and the general way that this works is we want our browser to talk to Burp Suite before Burp Suite sends out those requests to the internet. And this is because we want to see all that traffic that we are requesting back and forth between the websites we might want to assess. So how do we get our browser to talk to Burp Suite? Well, in Chrome, we can choose settings on the right hand side here under the 3 bars here, and we can go down to show advanced settings, and go to network. And under network, we can choose LAN settings in the bottom right hand corner. And here, we want to make sure that this box is checked. We want to use a proxy server. And we want to set the address to 127.0.0.1 port 8080. And I'll show you why this is right now. So when Burp Suite starts up, it starts up what's called a proxy listener. And if you go to the proxy tab and you go to options, it will tell you where to send your browser under proxy listener. So here you can see that same address is listed right here, and Burp Suite is actually running and listening on this port. So 127.0.0.1 is our local host, port 8080 is where Burp is running, and again, this is because Burp sits between your browser and the website you want to talk to so that we can do application assessment and see all those requests and responses between that site. So here you can see that the proxy is actually running because this is checked, and that's the address we need to send our browser to. So if we go back to our browser and the LAN settings, you can see that I've set up 127.0.0.1, port 8080. I also want to go to the advanced area here and make sure that use the same proxy server for all protocols is checked and say OK. And then we're going to say OK again here and OK. And now, if I go back to Burp and the intercept tab basically starts up when Burp starts up, capturing all traffic and not letting it through. So Burp has started up and my browser is pointed to it, and my browser automatically started firing off all kinds of requests, right? There's chat requests, from Google Talk. There's requests coming to the site that I want to test, which is portswigger.net. So I can forward and drop these as I wish. So I can drop here, I can drop here, I can drop all of these that are queued until there's no more requests. Now, if I refresh with my browser here, it's going to trap it. So you see that this page hasn't actually updated yet. It's still thinking. And here's that request. So I've requested portswigger.net/burp/download. You can see portswigger.net burp download. So let's forward that one through. Now you can do this ad hoc like this, forward and drop as much as you want, and it gives you a very granular view of what's coming in and out of your browser, which is good. But for the purposes of this training, I'm actually going to turn intercept off so that all the traffic just goes through, and all that Burp is doing is logging it in this tab, HTTP history, and adding it to the target tab, which I'll show you in a second. So I'm going to turn intercept off by clicking this button here. So now all requests and responses will just go right through, and all Burp will do is log them. So if I go to the HTTP history, and you excuse me if I turn back the default settings here. If I go to the HTTP history here, I can see everything that my computer has done since Burp was in the middle, and it has all these requests and responses. These are all things that have gone out to Google. Obviously, I have some Google services running in the background, and also portswigger.net is in this list here as well. So also, a representation of what you've been doing with your web traffic also shows up in the target tab. So here's the target tab, and this allows us to view the site tree of a site. So here you can see portswigger.net, and if you click here, you can see all the requests and the responses that have gone through there, just like you could in the proxy tab. But if you expand it, and you can actually right-click and choose expand branch, you can see everything. You can see that you get actually like a little visual representation of a sitemap here, which is basically makes running these assessments and understanding where certain scripts and parameters present themselves, it makes it way easier. Now, I've only visited one page, but you can see that on portswigger.net a ton of stuff has been loaded, just images and things like that. Now, when you're assessing a site, one of the first things you're going to want to do is set up a scope, which is a type of filter for Burp in general. And I had this actually on when I started Burp, but I'll show you how to run through and filter out all the noise. Because you can see I have a ton of Google stuff going on. You can see in my proxy HTTP history tab, there's a ton of Google stuff going on. And I don't necessarily want to see that because in this fake scenario, I'd be testing portswigger.net. So in order to set up this filter or this scope, this is what I do. I go to the target tab, and I go to the sitemap, and at the top level here at portswigger.net, I right click, and there's going to be an option here to add to scope. I've actually already added this scope, so if I right click here, it actually says, do I want to remove it from scope? But I've already added to scope, and what that's going to do is it's going to add it to the scope tab. If I go here, you can see that I've added portswigger.net to my scope. These are basically sites that I want to see if I filter down to show only in scope, and I'll show you what that looks like right now. So portswigger.net, anything off the main domain is added there. So now every tool, or almost every tool, has this ribbon here, which is called the filter ribbon. If I click on the filter ribbon, I get a whole bunch of options as to what I can view in the tool below, which right now I'm in the sitemap. Well, what I want to do right now is in the sitemap, I only want to see portswigger.net. I don't want to see all the other Google traffic. So I can check this box and say show only in scope items, and this will slowly remove everything that's not portswigger.net. Perfect. So now this cleans this up a little bit. If this was a site I was assessing, now I have a lot more visualization room to check out just this site. And you can do this with almost all the other tools if they have a filter. So here's the proxy and HTTP history window. I can do the same thing, show only in scope things. And here is the one request that I made there to portswigger.net. So back to the target and sitemap. Now, usually when doing application assessment work, there are a couple different ways to build out this sitemap and get a good representation of what's on the site. So one is actually just walking the site. So here is my web page. If I go to About Burp and Success Stories and Download, Support, and Blog, contact, you can see that I've started to build out the site tree a little bit here. Now, walking the site like that manually is where you want to start, and it will fill up your site tree and your requests and responses to basically see what's going on the site. There's another way to do this, which is spidering. So Burp Suite includes a programmatic spider, and the spider will follow all links on a domain and fill out this site tree so that you can see everything that's going on in the site. And to do that, you can right-click here and choose Spider this host. So if you click on the Spider tab, it shows the status under the Control tab. It says the spider is running because that button's pushed in. These are the number of requests it has made, the number of bytes transferred, and then if there's anything queued. So you can see that there's no request queued anymore, so that means that the spider is done. I can click this and stop the spider completely. And here we've filled out more of our sitemap here. Now, the spider went out and requested every link it could find on the portswigger.net site. Before this happened, there were some areas inside of this sitemap that were gray instead of black. What a gray entry means here instead of a black entry means that Burp Suite, through looking at the site, recognized that there was a link but didn't request it. So gray just means that that item has not been requested before, and black means that it has been requested. So when you click on a gray link, it might not necessarily have a response to it. So let's go over how you review some of the data inside of here. So let's look at any one of these requests. These are all web requests to portswigger.net. And if I click here, you can see that this is the general information for the request. You have the host, the method, the URL that we requested, if there were parameters, the MIME type, and the title in this top pane right here. In the bottom pane, you have your request and response data. So this is the raw request that we made. We made a GET request to burp/do more/HTML with all of the associated headers. And you can view both of the request and the response tab different ways. So normally I view them in raw mode, but you can also choose parameter mode, which will give you this table version of all of the types of parameters. For instance, this is a cookie, the name of the cookie and the value. And so when you're doing application assessment work, using the parameter tab can break down some of the places where you might want to inspect and fiddle with. You can also view just the headers for that request, and you can view the whole thing in hex. And the same is true for the response. Here you can see I can see the raw response in HTML. This is what came back. I can view just the headers, which are here. I can view it in hex. I can view it in parsed HTML, so we get some proper HTML indentation there. And then you can also render it. So you can render the response in the window. And you can see that Burp does a render of just plain HTML. It doesn't parse it very well, but you can get the general feel for what's going on the page using the render tab. So that's all through the sitemap. If we go back to the proxy in HTTP history, we can do around the same kind of thing. So you can see this is the one direct request I've made to portswigger.net. And if I click on it, I can check the request and the response. So that is the target and the proxy tab. There are some associated options. We talked about scoping. In the proxy tab, if you go to options, there's a whole bunch of options on how you do your requests and response interception, as well as being able to, on the fly, change things instead of having to grab them in the intercept tab all the time if you turned intercept on, as well as how you handle certain web protocols. And we can probably go over a lot of that stuff later. We talked about the spider and how you can view the spider here and its progress. The next video we'll talk about intruder and repeater and the workflows that they offer in testing an application. And we will actually use a vulnerable application instead of portswigger.net to illustrate why you would want to use intruder and repeater. So that was basic installation and usage. And if you guys have any errata or questions, you can go ahead and hit us up on the Bug Crowd forums under the Burp Suite topic. Thanks, everybody.